Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me in Moshiach Ali Studio 770. I'm joined by, I don't know how I managed to get this amazing guest. The world seeks her to get onto their podcast, but I had a special connection. You see, she's my wife, thank God. Adina, Sarah. And Adina, apart from making smart decisions, as you can tell, actually is a very great scholar in Hasidus and Jewish mysticism. And Adina, I'd like to ask you, the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, speaks about that every single parsha, the Torah portion that we read, everything is designed by Hashem. It's called Hashgacha Pratis. If where an ant walks is designed by God, how much more so the Torah portion that we're reading relates to the times that we're in. What do you believe this week's Torah portion? You mentioned before it started to rain. You say it always begins to rain. Certainly here in Israel, in this week's Torah portion, the portion of Noah, the portion of the flood. But I know there's a deep spiritual message to what is flood waters. What does that mean? Everything in the Torah is not just a story. It represents an eternal lesson. What is the eternal lesson that we can learn from basically a family having to go into this little ark to save themselves from this world flood?
Right. So we were just talking earlier about certain things in this world that distract us, the metaverse, iPhone, Facebook, all these things. And we were discussing Parshas Noach. So what is Parshas Noach? What are these waters? So water is actually, like, we associate water with something that's like life-giving. It's pleasure. It's something that we find that it quenches us. And so when we're in this like very external way, we're quenched by, like when we're addicted to our phones, we're quenched by every time that the WhatsApp being like has a little like notification that somebody messaged me, or every time there's something external, it feeds us, it satiates us, or it satiates us. And we were talking about this concept of the metaverse. I wasn't 100% aware. This alternate reality, this kind of, what's it called, like this pseudo reality, this fake reality where I just like am pretending to be who I want to be and living a fake life in imagination land. When really, what's the whole point? The point is God desires a world here. So what are these? It's spoken about in Hasidus in many places. What are these waters of Noach? Because of course, at the time there was flood waters. There's an actual what happened, but every year we're reliving the energy of the world. It's more important to learn the parsha than it is to read the news, because really, what's happening in the world is what's in the parsha. The energy of the world is what's in the parsha. So these waters of Noach, what is that in our lives these days? That's the question. And so it's spoken about in Hasidus that these are our worries about financial things, our worries about, which can even be, what are people going to think of me? How am I projecting myself? How does this person view me? I'm worried about, what do I need to do next? Like, it can be manifest in so many ways. And like we saw a lot, like during Corona, people had to go in their houses. They didn't know what to do with themselves. So what was the message to Noach? It says, go into the Teva, go into the ark. And I guess Teva is also a word in Hebrew for word. It was like, go, one of the explanations in Chassidus from the Baal Shem Tov, I believe, was go into the words of prayer. We go into this place, a place that's really like a sanctuary within ourselves. And that's what, like, our message for us in Noach is, like, the world, especially this time of year, we're done with the holidays, we're going out into the real world and just like kind of remembering to keep a sacred space within ourselves, so we can center, so we can acknowledge where does the rain really come from, where do our brachas really come from, where are all those things that we're seeing, where do they really come from? And also, none of those things are really going to satisfy me unless I'm connected to their purpose. And their purpose is really when I'm like connected to my true self, because all I think we're ever really seeking is that true connection to ourself. It just takes more work to get there by working on it within ourselves versus going out and getting an instant gratification fix. Pleasure is pleasure, but like there's different levels, and there's like the klipa of it, and there's the kedusha of it. The kedusha of it is when I'm really connected inwardly to my true self. And that's not to say, of course, Noach had to leave the ark. He was also told that he had to go out, and he had to be told to go out, because it can sometimes become very comfortable also within ourselves. So we have to have that balance. But the message I believe, for these times is to really be focused. And I think that it's also first thing in the morning to really be focused first and foremost on our inner reality, on our true reality, on our quiet reality, on the reality that's really connection with the Creator, with our purpose. And then from there, from that solid place, then we're able to go out and give to the world.
Absolutely. That's very, very beautiful. And I want to add that we know that the Baal Shem Tov says that there are three types of souls that come into this world. It's based on the verse, Yardei Hayam Ba'aniyos, Oisei Malacha B'mayim Rabim. Those who come into this world, into the ocean it's called, with ships. So there are certain Jewish people that they're born, or maybe even non-Jews, but they're born into kind of a religious family that has structure. We see that religious. Remember kind of this guy that I used to take my clothing to, dry cleaners. I was so convinced that he was Jewish. He was actually Catholic, but I think it was just the strong family values that they had. So you could have various different religions that, as long as they're kind of really following the biblical principles, really have a boat, something that's really keeping them. And suppose then there are Yardei Yamba Niyos Oisim Malach Mayim Rabim. There are other souls that are drowning in the ocean. This is very much the flood waters of today. It speaks about before the coming of the Mashiach. I heard this from Rabbi Leibel Wolf, that the previous Rabbi said that it used to be like a train going between two cities, so basically north or south. So basically the world had the Judeo-Christian ethic, but, you were a little more religious, a little less religious, but basically you had decency, you had morality, you understood not to have immoral sexual relations, even not to have promiscuity, get married, to have children, to make money, not to steal, not to kill, not to lie. I mean, it was basically normalcy. Okay, we veered a little bit here, a little bit there. Nobody's perfect. But now as we're entering into the times of Mashiach, the infinite zone, where really the whole point of the infinite zone, like you were saying, is to go deep inside the infinite, because the infinite is the deepest place of ourselves, and allow that to be our expression in the world. But as we enter into that zone, a lot of the kind of infinity is able to contain all reality. So suddenly every single nutcase has a YouTube channel. That's not me. And now, so thank you. So now what we're discovering is that, there are many people that are drowning in the sea. And it's basically the waters of stupidity. And so what's happening is that you have then you have a third category of souls that they're meant to go, and they're the lifeguards. We're meant to go and shine light. It's like, imagine somebody's in an ocean, he doesn't know where to go, so somebody puts out a little lighthouse on an island. He says, come over here. This is where the truth is. And so a person should know, if you're watching this video and you're a little confused in your life, myself, my wife, we've been through this journey, and millions of Jews have been through this. I remember I had this guy come to the university that I was teaching at, and he said this really great line. He says, Jews were accused of being everything, but nobody accused us of being stupid. So when millions of Jews return to the essence of Judaism, God, to Hasidus, Jewish mysticism, you go to Chabad.org, go to my website, KabbalahWisdom.org, and you can just immerse yourself in an ocean, another ocean, an ocean of beauty. But like Adina said before, there's always this yin and yang between the inner world. You always have to have a moment of inspiration and a moment of perspiration. And as we go back and forth, then we're able to really generate an inner world, a true world. And then when we go to the outer world, we're not drowning in the sea. We're lifeguards, we're lighthouses, attracting greater and greater people, if you want to call it converts, helping people come out of the darkness and into light. Yeah.
Well, I also think that I could save it for another time, but I think that these waters, I think that they like mostly nowadays, like they really come from also within us, like in terms of that we'll have to talk about it next time. The whole thing of like escaping the self and looking for, because I think that it's like things more complicated than just the big bad powers of evil coming after us and trying to distract us. I think it's really more of an inner journey in ourselves that we're constantly kind of trying to escape our own greatnesses as humans. And so it's like, if I'm trying to escape my own greatness, even from the side of saying some big bad thing, from their side. If I'm trying to escape my own greatness, then I'm just going to try to put it on somebody else. So if they think I'm great, now I'm validated. You know what I mean? So even from both sides, I feel like it's humanity, like we're created in the image of God. We live in messianic times. We all have an individual mission. And I think that instead of trying to escape that and look for another thing, it's really more about doing all the healing work inside so we can kind of settle into that in an integrated way, and like about like really being in this world and here for one another in like a co-creative.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Well, I hope we inspired you. I hope we were a little bit of a lighthouse in Ocean, and we encourage you to like and subscribe, and most importantly, to basically find your arc. And the arc is Teva the words, which is the words of prayer. And you know, when I pray, and my wife is great at praying, when you actually say those words, that God gave us the words themselves, and you just say those words and you think about those words, then what it begins to occur is you have the most wonderful meditation possible. You know, I know a guy that invented a machine that takes you into the alpha frequency, an amazing machine. And I asked him, well, how do you get into the alpha? He says, just say the words of the Jewish prayers, because as you say these beautiful concepts on a daily basis, you enter into the most beautiful, if you want to call it, meditative state. And that's the whole idea of the prayer. That's the idea of Shabbos, the idea of entering into that calmness. So when we go out into the world, and the world is very hectic, and we were discussing before, we're thinking of giving up our smartphones, getting in dumb phones, because we want to have our inner space. And that inner space is really important for us to be able to affect the outer space, not let the outer space drown us, but actually be a lighthouse for the outer space. So we don't want to keep you for too long, but this was just a little episode. With God's help, hopefully we'll do a lot more. Thank you so much for watching.